Ready or Not was a 2019 final girl style of action thriller from directors Matt Bettinelli-Olpin and Tyler Gillett, collectively known as Radio Silence, and starring Aussie actress Samara Weaving. I have run through the filmography of Radio Silence in my review of Abigail, as well as an in-depth discussion of Weaving as a modern scream queen in my double review of Azrael and Borderline. Go check those out if you have not. As I'm going to review the sequel Here I Come, do expect spoilers for the first movie. In the prologue, we see a couple of young boys from a well-to-do family having a late-night fun in their opulent mansion until one of the boys, named Daniel, witnessed a live slaying of a new family member in the new room of their aunt. This was when we realized the Ladomas harbored a dark secret and played a dangerous game with the new member to their family when they drew the wrong card in a game of chance. Decades had passed. Daniel and younger brother Alex grew up, and the latter was due to introduce a new family member with his bride Grace, with a wedding ceremony a girl who grew up without a real family unit could only dream about. Still feeling giddy with the welcome of the Ladomas into the extended family and fueled by the euphoria of the celebration, Grace was due to draw the card, which felt innocuous enough as a family activity. Hide and seek, played within the immensely spacious land where the Ladomas empire stood upon, certainly piqued the interest of Grace, who had yet granted the luxury of time to change out of her wedding gown even before the newlyweds could consummate their union. As much as Alex was aggrieved that his bride had picked the much-dreaded card, which meant the whole family had to end her life to save that of the family themselves, he was helpless to do anything about it, as his loved ones started arming themselves with the weapon of their choice to sacrifice Grace to a certain Mr. LaBelle. With every single member of the Ladomas family, from the patriarch down to the young grandchildren and even the butler and servants, everyone was ingrained with the ideology and the unyielding motivation to put Grace through the sword literally. Little was known about the background of Grace, but our heroine was one that was easy to root for to ensure she could last the night with all the odds stacking against her. Ready or Not, which of course a simple title derived from hide and seek, which transcend time and place, felt like coming on the heels of the cultural zeitgeist created by the HBO series Succession, which I always feel the realism of depicting the infightings and betrayal of your loved ones for legacy, inheritance, and so much more, petrified me more so than having a family of weapons-wielding rich crazy people coming for the mortality of a new family member. The screenplay for the movie was written by Guy Busick, a regular collaborator with Radio Silence with their Scream sequels, as well as R. Christopher Murphy, and it explored the abhorrent nature of the top 1%, something synonymous to another successful horror franchise with The Purge, and the concept of selling a soul to the devil to preserve your wealth was not remotely far-fetched. It was a fun romp from Olpin and Gillett, which put them on the pedestal in the studio horror scene, grooming them nicely to take over the directorial reins of the rejuvenation of the Scream franchise. Their stylized filmmaking to unravel mystery and bringing the viscera in the fun way on the table for the audience was evident at this stage of their career. However, it felt very much the same old, even with what transpired in a movie like Abigail, which of course was part written by Guy Busick as well. I think Ready or Not, together with The Babysitter, which preceded the release of this movie, was instrumental in molding Samara Weaving as a versatile actor for the horror genre. In the blood-soaked wedding dress, Weaving as Grace was a memorable final girl for a certain time period. The character's slow metamorphosis from an ailing prey into someone who was fighting back against people whom she should regard as family for a hot minute was appreciated as well by fans of the slasher subgenre. Adam Brody, an actor who gained traction in both the small and big screens, was never someone who made a mark within me. Playing Daniel, he was a wild card within the Ladomas household and had been scarred since his childhood, an important insight for the character who was essential in aiding Grace in her cause. The dynamics between Daniel and Alex was so interesting, whether it was true kinship, jealousy, or otherwise, we would never know. We have recognizable faces in Andy McDowell and Henry Zerny in the key roles as the head of the household, as well as the scene-catching Aunt Helen, who lost her husband in the last time the hide and seek card was drawn, and he was not fortunate to survive that night. Other members of the Ladomases felt very much like comedic relief and stumbling blocks along the way, like the cooked-out sister Emily, who should not be handling a crossbow ever. Mark O'Brien played the dreamy groom for Grace in Alex. He was a tortured soul for most of the movie, wanting so bad to protect his beautiful bride, but in terms of character building, he was as two-dimensional as one could get. Ready or Not will always be remembered for the final scene with the close reveal of Labille, which was an anagram for Belial, the name of the devil in the New Testament, with the fate of the Ladomases satisfyingly transpired on screen. I was certainly late to the party, but after watching their movies after Ready or Not, it felt like Olpin and Gillett had very limited repertoire in their horror movie storytelling and filmmaking. Ready or Not was simply a 6.5 out of 10 for me. Ready or Not was a financial success for the studios, and the coffers naturally wanted a sequel. And when the directing team of Olpin and Gillett, as well as lead actor Samara Weaving, were on board, the sequel, subtitled Here I Come, was in full production and was released in 2026, 7 years after the earlier movie. We picked up the exact point where Grace was sitting in the courtyard of the Ladomas mansion, totally lost in making any sense of what had happened the night before. The law enforcement and the EMTs came to bring her to the infirmary when her heart stopped beating for a second. The news of the massacre of the Ladomases was made aware to a bedridden old man by the name of Danforth, who looked worried and asked for his children and the descendants of the other 4 elite families. Danforth and Ladomas belonged to a council of 6 who devoted their lives to Labille to ensure they could continue to maintain their wealth and luxurious life. The Ladomas held the custody of Labille previously, and with them gone, the remaining family had to attain the survivor of the game, i.e. Grace, to ensure one of the families can win, which naturally put these people's greed into overdrive. Back in the hospital, Grace reconciliated with her sister Faith, who she had not seen for years, before immediately being under the assassination attempt of one of the families. The spontaneous explosion that fans of the first movie enjoyed so passionately made its ceremonial return. The next generation of the Danforths will be running the show, but not without their frailties, while the other families were palpable for cocking things up, as Grace and Faith had to endure another night of people coming for their lives for reasons beyond themselves. Ready or Not, Here I Come felt like a plot influenced by the world, where characters were living in a game with rules and their lives as their gambling chips. A bit of that Squid Game effect. The summoning of the families from various ethnicities gave it a more worldly view, but it did not add much to the plot, except for some cheap levity. At least the filmmakers resisted the temptations of racial profiling and stereotyping. Here I Come was released in close proximity to Kirill Solokov's They Will Kill You, which I reviewed previously. This is truly another case of twin movies to me, seeing how similar the plot and the flow of the story was. Of course, Ready or Not took on the satanic cultist angle since 2019, yet in all aspects for a sequel to increase the stake and execution, this movie paled in comparison to They Will Kill You, which I enjoyed with beats slaughtering the unkillable in a maelstrom of blood splatters. Here I Come, running at about 15 minutes longer than the original movie, felt awfully bloated, with plenty of characters that were not interesting and confusing in their involvement, such as the daughter of the Hispanic family, who was previously engaged to Grace's ex-husband Alex, leading to this new character bearing that immense hatred towards her. This subplot felt awfully coerced. Back to the spontaneous explosion into a bloody mess. The creators wanted to find a creative way to incorporate that. So this time, having the sinkhole in the ritual room turning into an occultist grinder was a lackadaisical attempt as compared to once again the climatic showdown we had seen in They Will Kill You. Ultimately, Ready or Not, Here I Come felt like a product that underwent 2 rounds of recycling from the original movie to what Radio Silence and writer Guy Busick ported to get Abigail, and then tried to rework that movie here as well. Another comparison to They Will Kill You was the estranged sister storyline, which to me felt more like taking a leaf from the Scream movies Olpin and Gillett had made. They wanted to recapture the magic of the Carpenter sisters with Grace and Faith to very little success, I must say. Faith's involvement was merely used as collateral to force the hands of Grace, who otherwise could walk away from all this nonsense. Ready or Not was always meant to position Samara Weaving with a high tolerance to physical harm and brandishing all sorts of weapons in her blood-soaked wedding gown as an enduring visual, bringing in Catherine Newton, someone who Radio Silence was enamored with since her smaller yet significant role in Abigail felt like a concerted effort to multiply whatever worked in the original movie, which of course rebounded badly on the filmmakers. Newton was also a familiar face in the world of contemporary horror filmmaking, but her character Faith was ill-fitting for the actress who was more comfortable in the skin of an erratic wildcat, like her character in Abigail. Looking through the cast assembled for Here I Come, it felt like who's who in the horror movie stunt casting. If you had seen my channel intro segment for the past few months, there was one snippet with the likes of Elijah Woods, Nestor Carbonell, and Sarah Michelle Gellar sniggering at the ordeals of our protagonist, taken from the official trailer. After his Penguin parody in Macon Blair's remake of The Toxic Avenger, and that blink and you miss it cameo in Osgood Perkins' The Monkey, Woods continued to strive in smaller roles in horror features, playing the nameless lawyer character who basically was the game master to relay the expositions, and I enjoyed his every little reaction and interaction with the players when things got chaotic, especially when LaBelle had very little care for his devotees. Geller and Sean Hattersey played the Dunford twins, who had a better grip of the situation than most others, but for a while, it kept reminded me of an underlying incestuous relationship like in Geller's movie Cruel Intentions. Geller of course had a memorable run in teen slasher features in the 1990s amid her successful stint as Buffy the Vampire Slayer, while Hattersey was in Robert Rodriguez' The Faculty, which of course Elijah Woods was featured in it as well. We also had a fun cameo from director David Cronenberg in the role of the patriarch of the Dunford clan. Fans of the TV series Lost will never forget Nestor Carbonell's involvement in that series, and he was a character actor who always lit up the screen in the many TV series he was featured in, most recently in Hulu's Shogun. Playing Ignacio, the head of the Al-Qaeda clan, Carbonell had some gun-throttling fun but had to speak in their awful accent. Beside Catherine Newton, Kevin Durant was another recurring cast from Abigail, playing another role the big man was typecast to play. The sequel to the successful Ready or Not was always designed to build a world of rich people sacrificing unknowing victims to the devil to maintain their riches and status, which worked with whimsical characters getting embroiled in sticky situations as most of the time everyone loses. There's something that rubbed me the wrong way with these Radio Silence productions, which always have the same motif they worked upon. The sequel also felt evidently long to me sitting through it, which was not a good sign. I'm awarding Ready or Not, Here I Come a 5.5 out of 10. Go catch They Will Kill You Instead, please. I suppose I had my fill of movies with our final girl physically and mentally tortured by an archaic occultist for the time being, and looking for horror flicks of other contexts. So please help me by clicking a like and share this review. Subscribe to see what new horror movies reviews are coming in the future. They Will Kill You from Russian director Kirill Solokhov was part of a double bill review with Canadian director Ian Twassen's Undertone. That gave me an awesome antithesis in horror movie watching. So based on the lyrics of the song from the Fugees, the sequel to follow Here I Come will be subtitled You Can't Hide. They better bring in Wyclef Jean for a cameo by then.